Hello everyone, welcome to CodeWolf, the place where you learn, code, and grow. Today I have a very interesting project to showcase you. We'll be creating flashcard based quiz app which would help us to quickly learn something on the go. You can play this with your friends wherein you can ask them questions about various topics, and it is a great project to have on your CV when you're applying for jobs. And we'll be using React, one of the most popular front end libraries, and I think you're really gonna like it. So, first things first, let us start with creating our React project. So, I'll be using the command over here npx create React app and just specify any name. So, I'll be choosing Flashy over here. So till it installs, let us see exactly how our React app would look like. So I have created a sample React app with the same file structure or the same structure already, and I'll be loading that so that you can also see that how this will eventually work on your desktop or on your browser. So really all we need to know or all we need to understand while building such an app is that how we are going to model our front end and how are we going to link all the dependencies, link our API calls wherein we'll populate our flashcards with all sorts of information, and really a cool trick that will happen as we see over here. So if I just click on this view questions, what you see over here is that these are cards that keep on coming based upon the number of questions we select and the category we select over here. So if you click on any card, you'll again be able to see that these questions have an answer that comes in this fabulous animation. So this is what we'll be building today. Now, one more thing to notice over here is that as we resize this, it actually gets all the cards get resized by themselves, and they take up the screen space, and the heights and the widths are resized dynamically. Now, this is a very interesting front-end UI problem to solve, and I'm pretty sure that any company that you're applying in, they'll really appreciate the kind of work that you are doing. So to build that, now that our project is ready, you'll have this project folder structure or the directory structure over here. Now, the first thing that I always love to do is remove any sort of random code or random CSS that is present over here. So let's remove all of that. In the app.js class, let's remove our current div and let's have only a header that says hello. And again, from our CSS, let's remove everything. Perfect. Let's try to run our app over here. So the command to run that would be npm start, and then we just click enter and let it do its job. So okay, so this error came because I'm not in the correct folder. As you can see, I have to move to my correct folder and run the command again. So when I run this command, what would happen over here is that it will build our project and it will start loading all the necessary dependencies to actually load that. So as we can see over here, our hello is printed and pretty much we are set to start our entire React project, which will display our flashcards. So now if we look at the problem closely, let's also go to this readme and remove everything over here and just type in flashy, our project name, a brief description, flashcard quiz app, and then let's just type the steps that we'll be following over here. Now the first step that comes into my mind is actually creating a project structure and files to hold our flashcards. Right? Simple enough. So all we need to do over here is basically have our flashcard components ready and our first task would be complete. Now to do that, in the source folder over here, I'll just create a new file and let us name that as flashcard.js. I also want a new file because whenever we ran our app earlier, that app basically had all our flashcards listed in a sort of a list fashion. So we can have one individual component of a flashcard, but to actually render it somewhere, we need to display a lot of them together. So if you see in our sample demonstration of a project, you can see this is actually a list of flashcards. So let's create one other component which will hold this list, and let's call that as flashcard list.js. Now that our components are ready, one common VSCode plugin that I really love to use for React is plugin that really simplifies all our expressions. I have all my plugins that I'm using over here listed over here, so you can take a look at those. So the plugin that I mentioned over here is this ES7 React Redux GraphQL React Native, etc., etc. All you need to do is just go to this extensions tab, search for this plugin ES7 React Redux, etc. I'll link this plugin in the description, so you can search that, and once it's installed, when you go to your components, all you need to do is just type in RFC. So that means React functional component, and it will load all the boilerplate code needed to create a React functional component. We'll be doing this similarly for our flashcard component as well. So if I just type in RFC, this creates my flashcard component. For now, let's just say h2 flashcard, and let's just include this over here. Oh, my bad. So let's just include the flashcard component over here. So for now, I'm just closing it within the same bracket because I won't be needing anything else right now. So what this basically is doing is that within the list of flashcards, we are importing the individual or loading the flashcard component. Now, as you can see, this code won't work right now because this component is just arbitrarily present over here. What we need is to import it. So you can import that as import flashcard from your directory structure of flashcard. Now this is one of the most important steps over here, but to actually display that in our app, we need to do a certain number of other operations as well. So let's say that in our flashcard app, we want to load everything from this root app.js. So to do that, as we loaded in the flashcard list, we loaded the individual flashcard component. Similarly, what we'll do over here is that we'll load our flashcard list in the app.js. So I'll be creating a div over here. Now, one thing that you need to understand in React is that every component, every functional component can have only one child component, and within that you can create several nested other tags basically. But right now you'll have to ensure that only one parent tag or the parent div tag is present. So once this is done, we need to list our flashcard list, right? And similarly, we have to import it. It throws this error that this list is not defined because we haven't imported it. And now it also throws us the error that the flashcard is not defined, and that's in flashcard list. So let's check flashcard list over here and see what's wrong. So once we save that, that's also resolved. So great. Now we have our basic directory structure ready. Let's see what happens when we load this. And as you can see, this loads the data from our flashcard. So this is all cool, but what we need to do is essentially load a list of different cards that come upon whenever we start loading this flashcard list. Now to do that, for every project that I create, I do not, when there are some API calls involved, I do not want these API calls to be instantiated from the get-go, because there is a very high chance of failure in different aspects or in different nodes whenever you create a project. So what you should always aim at doing is to create some sort of dummy or some sort of sample data. So over here, I'll create a JSON object or like a object, simple object that we can iterate over, and that would give us some sample flashcards. So I'll create the sample flashcards, and over here, now every list would be iterated over some unique key. That unique key is something that maintains our order of the list on React and helps us to distinguish between two different components. So to create this key, I'll use this ID parameter or the ID key over here. And similarly, I'll have certain other parameters that would populate in my flashcards. So these other parameters can be something like a question. So we want our flashcards to contain some questions. So I'll simply add a question like, what is the value of pi? Right, so this is a simple question. Similarly, every question needs to have an answer. So I'll also include one answer over here, that it is 3.14. And finally, our flashcard will also contain options. If you see over here, there are certain options over here. So I'll specify an array of options wherein I'll give some random values like 3.22, 3.15, 3.66, and I made one mistake. I forgot to add the quotations before every option. So finally the correct one, 3.14. And this actually, these options actually complete our entire sample data set that we need. So what I'll require you to do over here is that I'll require you to have a lot more options than just these. So a simplest way to do that would be to recreate this sample data set as an array and pass in the value of different objects within it. Right? So this creates the first object, and similarly, I'll copy this to create one other object with a different ID, ID2, and let's say what is the value of 2 plus 2, and I'll change the answer over here to 4, and similarly I'll change the options to 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is pretty much what I wanted to achieve from our sample dataset. There are two different objects that we can iterate over, and this will populate on our flashcards that we want to have. Now to make this list as a item that we want to share through different components of ours, we have a feature in React called props. So props is short for properties that we can pass through different components from their parent component and vice versa. So this will really help us to pass these different objects that we want to our intended location. So for now, I want to pass in the props over here, which would help me to basically iterate over different sample flashcards. So I would want to pass flashcards, and my value would be sample flashcards. Right? So our flashcard list is ready. What we now need to do is we need a mechanism by which we can iterate over our flashcards and display them in a particular order. So if we move back to our flashcard list, now what we need to do over here is that we don't want to render just a single flashcard. We want to have multiple flashcards, and in those multiple flashcards, we want to have them listed out or like displayed in sort of a list fashion. So since we are already getting a prop, so the default or the common way to get that is using this props keyword. Then you can probably go out and just destructure that and get that through over here. So this is a common practice known as destructuring. Okay, so destructuring basically refers to getting some individual keys from an object, which would help us to iterate over them, do any operation over them, or create any sort of uh, superimpositions over them. So this is just basically getting some data from what we need. A simpler way to do that would be to destructure right where we get the props. So I'll just destructure them right over here. Now that I have flashcards and I also have this warning displayed in app.js, let's just take care of that quickly. All I need to do is just remove my logo, and there are no errors right now. Back to our flashcard list. So in this flashcard list, what I need to do right now is, first of all, I need to iterate over a list. So since flashcards is coming as an array to us, if you go back to our app.js, this sample flashcard data is an array. And using the map function of JavaScript, we can easily iterate over those. And in React, we can access that using the method that I'll just showcase over here. So if you see this flashcards.map, now what I'm trying to do is I am trying to recreate or re-render something out of this list, and a map would return us basically a completely new object or a completely new list. So for every item of flashcard, what I want to output or what I want to display would be in this format. So I want to return from here the flashcard object, right? And in that flashcard object, now I want to pass in certain information. Let's just remove this to avoid any confusion, and close this to basically see what we would want to have at the end without any errors. So in this flashcard object, I do want to pass in certain more errors. As you can see, there are already 2 flashcards being listed, and that is in accordance with the number of items we have in our sample flashcards list. So what I want to pass in into this flashcard is basically some more props. First being the prop of the flashcard itself, and second, whenever we iterate over a flashcard, or whenever we iterate over any object using map in React, if we do not provide a key, if we go in our console log, you'll see that there is an error that it will throw, that each child in a list should have a unique key prop, which means that a key is needed to be iterated for every flashcard. To do that, we simply need to pass in another value or another object over here, which would be key. And our key for our flashcards is nothing but our ID. So I can pass in this flashcard.id. And if you'll see over here again in the browser, you'll notice that our ID is gone, or the key error is gone. Now we have our initial objects ready. What we now need to do is go in our flashcard object and pass in all this information so that it comes in the appropriate format that we ask of. So if we move to this flashcard object, now you'll see again over here that we are getting a prop through our flashcard list. See over here, we are getting a prop. And similarly, we can destructure this prop using our destructuring method that we used earlier. So let's destructure that. This time it won't be flashcards, it will be just a flashcard, because every card is being iterated uniquely over here. Now to render it, let's go back and see what do we actually want to see over here. Right, so basically for every card we'll have something of question, we'll have something that would show us the answers, and finally it will have something that will show us the props or the options basically. So in this h2 tag itself, if I just say that this should show me flashcard dot question, and right, so you can see the value of question being printed over there. Now in the second iteration, I want to show them the options of this flashcard. So I'll use h3, or let's just use simply a paragraph tag. But the Problem with our options is that now it's not being now it's not a simple value being passed, it's again an array. And as we learned earlier, for an array, what we can do is we can simply use the map function to return the objects over there. So if we use that flashcard dot options dot map, and then we pass our option object over here, and finally we'll need to return something through that. So if I do this, and I'll have to return something over here. So in this option, I'll return a div, and this div will basically contain our option, right? So I'll write the option over here. So you can see our options being listed over here. Now again, there is one thing wrong with this options being tagged over here. And if you can guess what, do write that in the comments. I'll give you a second to think about that. So check what's going wrong over here. So, okay, you must have seen and already knew by right now that what wrong, or like what is the error that would occur over here. Since we are not passing any key value, it will throw us an error that there is no unique key prop. So similar to what we have seen in the flashcard list, we need to pass in a key. And herein, since options will be unique for all the items, we can just pass in the key as option itself. Now we go back to our console log and we re-render everything. We don't have the error coming again, right? So you can see our options being passed over here. Finally, over here, what we need is maybe we can just put in a space, and with every space, we can just add in our option. So I'll just use the paragraph tag over here again, and I'll just pass in my flashcard dot answer. Perfect. Now we can already see the structure of our flashcards being listed over here. You can see that it is the same structure, but the thing that is missing right now is actually the styling. And the next thing that is missing is that whenever we want to display this answer only when it is the flashcard is actually being clicked, right? So how do you think that that would be possible? So this is actually a very simple and unique problem, and I hope you enjoyed the video till now, because the next step would be actually styling this and actually making sure that whenever we click over this flashcard, only then we see this unique answer or the answer to our questions coming up. So in the next video, we'll be taking that challenge up, and I hope you liked the video. Do share and subscribe. It really would motivate me to create such amazing projects. I am Ankush Sharma, and this is the opportunity that you'll have to create unique, awesome projects and increase the number of hits on your portfolio, be more employable, and just be awesome at all JavaScript. So signing off. Bye-bye. Take care.